Oceans once pulsed with a predictable rhythm that ancient mariners learned to read like a clock. This is the story of the Monsoon Clock Wind Charts, a navigational breakthrough that turned the vast Indian Ocean into a scheduled superhighway. You will discover how a simple understanding of the wind's seasonal dance reshaped global trade and fused distant cultures together. How did sailors first decode this natural timetable, and what forgotten secrets lie within their intricate maps? What does it feel like to harness the power of an entire ocean simply by knowing when to set sail? For centuries, the Indian Ocean was a beautiful and terrifying enigma. Its waters could be placid and inviting one moment, then churn into a violent, directionless chaos the next. Early sailors were essentially coastal crawlers, their wooden ships clinging to the shoreline like a child holding a parent's hand. They navigated by known landmarks, the shape of a mountain or the curve of a familiar bay, always keeping solid ground in sight. To venture into the deep, open water was to invite catastrophe. The winds had no pattern, the currents no discernible rhythm. A journey from the Arabian Peninsula to the coast of India was not a calculated expedition, it was a desperate gamble. A ship could be becalmed for weeks, its crew slowly succumbing to thirst, or it could be blown wildly off course into uncharted waters, never to be seen again. This immense unpredictability acted as a powerful brake on human ambition. Trade was limited to short hops between neighboring ports, and the rich civilizations of India, East Africa, and the Middle East remained isolated, their cultures and goods separated by a formidable blue desert. The potential for connection was immense, but the ocean was a locked door, and no one yet held the key. This was the frustrating, fragmented world that existed before someone finally learned to listen to the sky. The breakthrough came not from a single brilliant mind, but from generations of patient observation. Ancient coastal dwellers were the first to detect a rhythm in the sky's chaos. They noticed the winds did not blow randomly forever. Instead, they reversed direction with the seasons in a grand, dependable dance. For roughly half the year, a steady, moisture-laden wind would push relentlessly from the southwest. Then, as if a giant had inhaled, the flow would reverse, and a drier, cooler wind would arrive from the northeast. This was the monsoon's heartbeat, a predictable pulse that transformed the ocean from a menace into a potential partner. This observation was far more than casual weather talk. It was a systematic life-or-death study of nature's patterns. Elders would pass this knowledge to their children, who would add their own observations, creating a rich oral tradition of wind lore. They learned to read the subtle signs in the clouds and the swell of the sea, predicting the precise windows when the winds would shift. The real genius was in application. A trader in Arabia aiming for India would now wait for the summer southwest monsoon. This wind would fill his sails and push him directly across the ocean, a powerful tailwind for the entire journey. Months later, laden with spices and textiles, he would catch the returning northeast monsoon to sail home. What was once a terrifying gamble became a scheduled voyage. Journey times could be cut from unpredictable, year-long ordeals to matters of weeks, with dramatically less risk of being lost at sea. This foundational understanding of wind periodicity was the spark. It was the first crucial piece of a puzzle that would eventually unlock the entire Indian Ocean. The next step was to move from understanding the pattern to mastering its timing. Sailors needed to know not just that the winds would change, but exactly when. This demand for precision gave birth to the concept of a monsoon clock, a systematic method for predicting the wind's schedule. It was no longer enough to feel the shift in the air. They needed to see it coming on a calendar. Scholars and seasoned navigators began compiling their collective wisdom into almanacs and tables. These early guides marked the expected onset of the southwest monsoon down to the week and the precise window for the return of the northeastern winds. They turned the grand, cyclical dance of the atmosphere into a practical timetable. Imagine a merchant in a bustling Gujarati port, consulting a waxed parchment not for the positions of ships, but for the predicted behavior of the air itself. He would see that the favorable winds for a voyage to Arabia would begin in early November and last until March. This was revolutionary. He could now plan his entire commercial year around these dates, ordering goods, hiring crews, and arranging contracts with a new level of confidence. To track the approach of these critical periods, early versions of the monsoon clock relied on the most reliable timekeepers they had. A navigator might note the position of certain stars as they rose on the horizon, signaling the impending seasonal change. Others observed lunar cycles or even used carefully calibrated water clocks to count down the days until the winds were forecast to turn. This institutionalization of timing was the true genius. It transformed the monsoon from a powerful but fickle force of nature into a manageable, almost predictable resource. By synchronizing their voyages to this natural clock, merchants could coordinate fleets, and explorers could plan ambitious journeys across thousands of miles of open ocean. This systematic control over the when was the final piece of the puzzle, the essential innovation that would soon demand a new kind of map, one that charted not the land, but the very highways of the sky. This new understanding of timing demanded a new kind of map, one that charted the invisible. The monsoon clock needed a face, and that face was the wind chart. These were not maps of land, but maps of the sky's highways over the sea. Cartographers, working with the accumulated wisdom of countless sailors, began to draw the ocean in a way no one had before. Their focus was not on coastlines, but on the vast blue expanse between them. With delicate inks on parchment or carefully etched palm leaves, they illustrated the great, sweeping arcs of the monsoon winds. A series of arrows might show the powerful thrust of the southwest monsoon pushing directly from Africa toward India. Parallel lines could trace the gentler, returning flow of the northeast winds. These were intricate, beautiful documents, a true fusion of empirical science and navigational art. Embedded within them were seasonal annotations, perhaps a small symbol of a monsoon cloud next to a date, or a note warning of a powerful cross-current near a particular headland. Every mark was a piece of hard-won knowledge, translated from oral tradition into a permanent visual guide. A sailor could look at such a chart and see not just where he was, but when he should be there. It detailed which winds to ride like a swift horse and which to avoid as if they were a treacherous reef. This visual standardization was a monumental leap. It meant a merchant from Oman and a shipmaster from Calicut could look at the same chart and understand the same oceanic timetable. The collective, secret knowledge of generations was now codified, making the complex dance of the monsoons accessible to any mariner who could read the symbols. It transformed the ocean from a realm of myth and fear into a networked system of scheduled departures and arrivals. These wind charts effectively turned the Indian Ocean into the world's first scheduled superhighway. With the routes and timetables now clearly mapped, a breathtaking volume of trade began to flow. From the spice gardens of the Malabar coast sailed peppercorns, cinnamon, and cardamom. Chinese junks brought delicate silks and porcelain, while ships from Africa carried ivory, gold, and exotic hardwoods. Arabian merchants contributed incense and gems, creating a continuous, rhythmic exchange of unimaginable wealth across the water. This was not merely a collection of independent trade routes, but a single, integrated network pulsating with the monsoon's predictable rhythm. The ocean was no longer a barrier, it was a bridge. Yet the most profound cargo traveling this superhighway was not material. These same ships, following the same wind roads, carried ideas that would reshape civilizations. Religions like Islam found a peaceful passage to Southeast Asia, while Buddhism sailed west. Navigational techniques, medical knowledge, and new technologies were exchanged in bustling port cities as freely as any spice. A single Dhow could carry Muslim scholars, Hindu merchants, and Chinese astronomers, all sharing their wisdom during the long, wind-powered voyage. The superhighway was a conduit for the human spirit itself. This cross-continental dialogue created legendary ports that thrived on diversity. Calicut on India's coast became known as the City of Spices, where Arab and Jewish traders negotiated in markets next to warehouses owned by Chinese ventures. Further west, the island of Zanzibar emerged as a pivotal hub, its culture a unique blend of Bantu, Arab, and Persian influences, all built on the monsoon trade. And in Southeast Asia, Malacca grew into a powerful sultanate, its harbor filled with dozens of languages and its laws designed to protect merchants from every corner of the known world. These were not just economic centers, they were the world's first global villages. This interconnected world, flourishing for centuries, highlights a stunning reality. Long before European caravels rounded the Cape of Good Hope, the Indian Ocean was already a unified economic and cultural zone. The mastery of the monsoon winds did not just move goods, it catalyzed a golden age of dialogue and prosperity that stretched from the Swahili coast to the South China Sea. It was a system built on understanding nature's clock, not on military conquest. How did this vast, cooperative network function for so long, and what forces eventually led to its transformation? But who were the architects of this oceanic superhighway? The wind charts were not handed down from the heavens. They were painstakingly built by an alliance of two key groups, the sailors who braved the sea and the scholars who documented its secrets. On one hand, you had the practical mariners, men like the famed Arab navigator Ahmad ibn Majid. He spent his entire life on the water, feeling the shift of the wind on his skin and learning to read the ocean's subtle moods. His knowledge was hard-won, born of experience and survival. On the other hand, you had the scholars and astronomers, often based in thriving port cities. These were the theorists who took the raw, spoken observations of the sailors and translated them into precise, written manuals. They combined the sailors' understanding of the monsoon's power with complex stellar navigation, creating a complete system for crossing the open ocean. This collaboration was the project's true engine. A sailor might know that a certain wind arrived when a particular star, say Canopus, was seen just above the horizon at dawn. He would share this correlation with a scholar in a place like Calicut or Hormuz. That scholar would then record it, cross-reference it with other reports from different voyages, and refine the timing, turning a rough guideline into a dependable rule. This process of data collection spanned generations, with each sailor and scholar adding another piece to the puzzle, slowly improving the accuracy of the wind predictions and the details on the charts. These pioneers were not isolated geniuses. They were nodes in a vast network of knowledge that stretched across cultures. A Persian astronomer's work might be studied by a Chinese cartographer, whose maps would then be used by an Indian ship captain. This free flow of information was the lifeblood of the entire system, proving that the greatest human achievements are often the result of many hands and minds working together across time and tradition. Their collective legacy is a powerful reminder that to conquer a challenge as vast as an ocean, you need both the courage to explore and the wisdom to record what you find. These wind charts were a brilliant timetable, but a schedule is useless if you cannot find your way. The charts told a sailor when to sail, but it was a suite of ingenious tools that showed him precisely where he was on the vast, empty ocean. To maintain their course far from any shoreline, navigators turned their gaze upward to the fixed clockwork of the stars. They used devices like the camel, a deceptively simple rectangle of wood with a knotted string. A sailor would hold the camel at arm's length, aligning the top and bottom edges with the horizon and the North Star. By seeing which knot on the string reached his nose, he could determine his latitude, his distance north or south of the equator. For greater precision, some navigators adopted the astrolabe, a complex bronze disc etched with star maps that could calculate the sun's height at noon. These were not just instruments, they were portable observatories, allowing a captain to take a fixed celestial reading and know his position with stunning accuracy, even in the middle of a trackless sea. But knowing your location is only half the battle. You must also be able to move effectively. The monsoon winds were powerful, but they were not always perfectly aligned. This challenge spurred a revolution in sail technology, the lateen sail. Unlike a traditional square sail that could only really catch wind blowing from directly behind, the lateen was a triangular, fore and aft rig that could be angled to harness the wind from almost any direction. It acted like a finely tuned hand on the tiller of the atmosphere. A ship could now sail efficiently even with the wind coming from the side, a point of sail known as close hauled. This meant a vessel was no longer a passive passenger on the monsoon highway. It was an active driver. If a wind shift was not perfectly ideal, the lateen sail gave sailors the agility to adjust their course without losing precious speed or time. It was the perfect mechanical partner to the predictable, yet sometimes fickle, monsoon system. The final piece of this technological puzzle was the ship itself. Vessels had to evolve to withstand the unique demands of long, open ocean voyages powered by these strong seasonal winds. The Dhow, the iconic sailing ship of the Indian Ocean, became a masterpiece of specialized design. Its most distinctive feature was a steeply angled, triangular lateen sail, perfectly suited for catching the monsoon's power, but its genius lay in its entire construction. The hull was stitched together with coir rope, a technique that gave the vessel a flexible strength, allowing it to twist and ride the powerful swells instead of fighting them. Its shallow draft enabled it to navigate the intricate coral ports of East Africa and the river deltas of India, while its robust build could survive the full force of the monsoon season. The Dhow was not a general-purpose boat. It was a machine engineered for one specific environment, the monsoon superhighway. It was the physical embodiment of centuries of nautical wisdom. Together, these elements formed an integrated system of unprecedented sophistication. The wind chart provided the strategic plan, the celestial tools offered real-time positioning, the lateen sail granted tactical maneuverability, and the Dhow supplied the durable, capable vehicle. This was not a collection of separate inventions, but a synergistic toolkit where each part amplified the others. The confidence granted by the camel encouraged bolder use of the wind charts. The agility of the lateen sail made the scheduled departures and arrivals more reliable. The sturdy Dhow made the entire enterprise safe and profitable. This holistic approach transformed the Indian Ocean from a navigable space into a truly manageable one, a realm where human ingenuity could consistently and safely harness the immense power of nature. With this complete system in place, the stage was set for an era of exchange unlike any the world had seen before. What kind of world was built upon this network of wind and wood? The true legacy of the monsoon highway lies not in what was carried, but what was transformed. Spices and silks were temporary possessions, but the ideas that traveled with them rewrote civilizations. A single trading vessel became a floating university, its hull packed with sacred texts, architectural blueprints, and revolutionary concepts in mathematics and medicine. Buddhist monks from India, catching the reliable winds, brought their philosophies to the kingdoms of Southeast Asia, where the majestic temple of Borobudur in Java stands as a permanent monument to that cross-oceanic conversation. Simultaneously, Muslim traders from Arabia and Persia carried their faith to the Swahili coast and the Indonesian archipelago, where local cultures absorbed these new beliefs, creating unique and enduring syntheses like the distinctive mosques of Java with their multi-tiered roofs reminiscent of Hindu temples. This exchange demanded a new way to speak. In bustling ports where a dozen languages collided daily, a practical solution emerged, the birth of trade tongues. Swahili, born on the East African coast, is a living testament to this era. It built its grammar on a Bantu foundation, but woven throughout are thousands of words borrowed from Arabic, Persian, and even Hindi, a direct linguistic record of who was trading and what they were discussing. This was not a crude pidgin, but a rich, complex language that became the medium for poetry, law, and commerce, uniting people from vastly different backgrounds under a shared vocabulary. The cultural transfer was not limited to the spiritual or the linguistic. It was profoundly practical. The astrolabe, perfected by Islamic scholars, became a vital tool for Chinese navigators. Medical knowledge from Ayurvedic practitioners in India found its way into the medical texts of the Middle East. Even dinner tables were forever changed. The clove from the Maluku Islands, once a luxury item, became a staple in kitchens from Zanzibar to Zanjan, altering culinary traditions across half the world. This was a world being remade in real time, not by conquest but by connection. The Monsoon Clock did not just schedule voyages, it synchronized a grand, centuries-long dialogue, creating a shared heritage that still echoes across the lands that border the Indian Ocean. This newfound predictability turned the ocean into a global marketplace humming with efficiency. Merchants were no longer gambling their fortunes on an unpredictable sea. With a monsoon clock dictating a reliable schedule, they could confidently invest in larger ships and fill their holds with unprecedented quantities of goods. A spice trader in India could contract for an entire season's harvest of pepper, knowing with certainty that his fleet would depart with the northeast monsoon and return with Arabian goods before the winds shifted again. This ability to plan transformed commerce from a series of risky ventures into a stable, cyclical enterprise. The sheer volume of trade skyrocketed, creating a continuous flow of wealth that lifted entire regions. The most visible beneficiaries were the great port cities, which transformed into thriving cosmopolitan hubs. Places like Cambay in India, Aden on the Arabian Peninsula, and Malacca in Southeast Asia grew immensely wealthy, their coffers filled with tariffs from thousands of ships. They were the vital nodes of the network, bustling with dockworkers, shipwrights, warehouse managers, and merchants from every corner of the known world. But this prosperity did not stop at the water's edge. A vibrant economic ecosystem spread inland as overland caravan routes ferried goods from the ports to distant capitals and back. A pearl harvested in the Persian Gulf might find its way to a noble in the Deccan Plateau, while fine cotton woven in Gujarat could dress a merchant in Baghdad. This deep integration meant that a farmer growing pepper in the hills of Kerala was now connected to the economic heartbeat of the entire Indian Ocean. As these exotic commodities became more accessible, they ceased to be rare luxuries for the elite and became more common in markets far from their origin. The demand for cinnamon, black pepper, and Chinese silk created specialized economies entirely dedicated to their production. This surge in commercial activity demanded new financial tools to keep pace. How could a merchant in Oman finance the purchase of an entire shipload of Indonesian nutmeg before the vessel even set sail? The answer was the development of sophisticated banking and credit systems. Letters of credit, known as SAC, allowed a merchant to deposit money with a banker in one city and withdraw it in another, a revolutionary step that eliminated the need to transport chests of gold across pirate-infested seas. Partnerships were formed to spread the immense risk and reward of a single voyage across multiple investors, a precursor to the modern joint stock company. This financial innovation was the invisible engine of the trade boom, proving that the monsoon charts did more than guide ships. They helped lay the very groundwork for modern commerce itself. Yet the wind charts were only one part of a much larger navigational symphony. To cross the open ocean, a captain had to become a master reader of nature's entire language. He would spend nights with his face turned upward, not in prayer but in precise calculation. The stars were his fixed points in a spinning sky. He knew that by measuring the height of the North Star above the horizon with his simple camel, he could determine his latitude, his north-south position on the globe. Other constellations served as celestial signposts, their rising and setting marking not just the hours but the seasons of his voyage. But the sky was only half the story. By day, his attention shifted to the sea itself. He learned to read the patterns of the ocean swells, the great, rolling waves generated by distant winds. A seasoned navigator could feel a subtle change in the rhythm of his ship, sensing a new swell pattern that hinted at a nearby landmass still well beyond the horizon. He watched the flights of seabirds. A tired tern returning to its nest at dusk could point the way to an invisible island. The color of the water, the type of drifting seaweed, even the taste of the air, all of these were critical data points in his mental map. This profound, multisensory awareness was too vital to be left to chance. So the great navigational families encoded this wisdom into poetry. Complex techniques for finding latitude or identifying swell patterns were transformed into rhymed instructions and rhythmic sailing songs. An apprentice would learn these verses by heart, singing them as he worked the ropes, the knowledge becoming as natural to him as his own breath. This oral encyclopedia ensured that the subtlest of environmental cues, the kind no parchment could fully capture, were preserved and passed down perfectly through the generations. This holistic approach, blending the wind chart's timetable with celestial observation and environmental reading, was the final key to true open ocean mastery. A ship was no longer chained to the coastline. A navigator, armed with this complete understanding, could now point his prow directly across the deepest, most empty stretches of blue, confident he could find his way. He was not just riding the wind, he was conversing with the cosmos and the sea itself. The mastery of the Monsoon Highway did not remain a secret of the Indian Ocean. Its success sent ripples across the world, ultimately inspiring a new era of global exploration. When the Portuguese captain Vasco da Gama finally rounded the Cape of Good Hope and struggled up the coast of East Africa in the late 1400s, he was not entering an empty sea. He was stumbling into a well-oiled, centuries-old network. In the sophisticated port of Malindi, located in modern-day Kenya, he found the key that would unlock his final push to India. It was not a better ship or a new weapon, but a person, a local navigator. Historians believe this was likely the famed Ahmed ibn Majid, a master of the monsoon routes. With this guide's profound understanding of the wind charts, Da Gama's fleet was able to catch the perfect southwest monsoon, catapulting them directly across the ocean to the shores of Calicut. This pivotal moment was not a European discovery, but a European adoption of a long-perfected Asian and African system. The monsoon clock had just powered the voyage that would permanently connect the East and the West. This encounter proved a revolutionary concept to European minds, that the vast, open ocean was not an impassable barrier, but a predictable highway. The feasibility of Da Gama's journey, built entirely on borrowed wind knowledge, shattered old fears. It encouraged a cascade of bolder voyages, not just eastward, but westward into the uncharted Atlantic. Explorers began to understand that the world's oceans operated on grand, systematic wind patterns. The same principles that governed the Indian Ocean's monsoons were identified in the Atlantic, where steady easterly winds, known as the trade winds, offered a reliable passage to the Americas. Christopher Columbus himself relied on this very idea, using the easterly trades to sail west and understanding the westerlies to help him return home. The ancient monsoon clock, in essence, provided the foundational logic for the entire age of discovery. It transformed the human perspective from a land-centric view of the world to a truly global, oceanic one. Continents were no longer isolated landmasses, but destinations reachable by anyone who could decode the rhythm of the winds. This shift in thinking, from fearing the sea to scheduling its use, stands as one of history's most profound intellectual leaps. The monsoon was more than a weather pattern, it was a character in an epic story. Ancient cultures looked at the immense, life-giving power of the seasonal winds and saw the breath of gods. In Hindu tradition, the god of rain and storms, Indra, was a central figure, his thunderbolt commanding the skies to open. Arabian sailors spoke of mystical jinn who could summon or calm the great winds with a whisper. These were not mere fantasies, they were a profound way of personifying a force that was both essential and terrifying. By giving the monsoon a name and a personality, sailors could relate to it, bargain with it, and seek its favor through ritual and prayer. This narrative layer turned the abstract science of atmospheric pressure into a gripping drama of divine moods and heroic appeals. The legends served a deeply practical purpose as well. Woven into these tales were crucial warnings for any mariner daring enough to challenge the sea. A common story across many port cultures told of a proud captain who ignored the elders' warnings and set sail just before the monsoon was due to shift. His ship, caught in the violent transition between seasons, was never seen again. This was not just a ghost story told for thrills, it was a powerful mnemonic device. It encoded a critical piece of navigational data: do not sail during the dangerous inter-monsoon period, into a memorable and emotionally charged narrative. The lesson was far more likely to stick in a young sailor's mind when it was attached to a tragic tale of hubris than if it were simply a line on a chart. This fusion of myth and reality created a resilient system of knowledge transfer. Before written manuals were common, this oral tradition ensured that the most important rules of the monsoon clock were preserved and passed down through song, poetry, and fireside stories. A chant about a wind deity's anger was, in its essence, a meteorological forecast. A legend about a hero who learned the language of the breezes was a tribute to the first master navigators. The stories made the science unforgettable, wrapping the hard logic of the wind charts in the enduring power of myth. The survival of these intricate wind charts through centuries of upheaval is a testament to their immense value. They were not stored in a single, secret vault, but duplicated and dispersed across the known world, creating a resilient web of knowledge that no single disaster could erase. In the great libraries of Baghdad and the scholarly centers of Cairo, scribes meticulously copied sailing manuals onto durable vellum, preserving the precise angles of the monsoon winds for future generations. Far to the east, in the temple schools of Java and the monastic libraries of Sri Lanka, The same principles were recorded on palm leaf manuscripts, their delicate pages etched with the wisdom of the ocean. This formal, institutional safeguarding provided a crucial backbone for the entire system, yet the true, living library was found in the homes of sailing families. From father to son, from master to apprentice, the secrets of the monsoon clock were passed down not through written words, but through rhythmic poetry and haunting sailing chants. A navigator might teach his heir a song that encoded the exact week the southwest monsoon would arrive off the Malabar coast, or a rhyme that detailed the behavior of cross-currents near Sumatra. This oral tradition was a dynamic, constantly updated archive, immune to the burning of libraries and the fall of empires. Its survival depended on a simple, unbreakable rule: the knowledge had to be sung, remembered, and used, or it would be lost forever. The charts also endured because they were never allowed to become static artifacts. Every voyage was a practical test, a real-world experiment that confirmed or refined the existing maps. A ship captain returning from a journey to Mozambique might report a slight shift in the wind's timing, and that new detail would be incorporated into the next iteration of the chart, whether drawn on parchment or memorized in a new verse. This constant application kept the knowledge alive, relevant, and accurate. When European colonial powers began to dominate the Indian Ocean, they initially dismissed this local wisdom as primitive superstition. But they soon realized that their own survival and profit depended on understanding the monsoon system they had encountered. Portuguese and later Dutch administrators, in a twist of historical irony, began systematically interviewing aging Arab and Gujarati navigators, transcribing their oral traditions and collecting their charts. While this was often an act of appropriation, it had the unintended consequence of preserving this knowledge in new forms, translating monsoon poetry into European logbooks and codifying wind patterns into Western atlases. The very utility that made the monsoon clock indispensable for trade also made it too valuable to disappear. Its principles were so sound, so effective, that they transcended cultural shifts and political takeovers. The charts survived because they worked, and in a world governed by the sea, that was the most powerful argument for their preservation. This resilience raises a final, compelling question. What can this ancient, wind-driven world teach us about navigating our own complex, modern world? The monsoon clock charts reveal a fundamentally different philosophy of the sea. In the vast Pacific, Polynesian navigators became masters of celestial mechanics, memorizing the precise paths of hundreds of stars as they arched over a watery world dotted with tiny islands. Their mental maps were a web of stellar highways, where the rise of one constellation over another pointed the way to a specific atoll. Success depended on an unbroken view of the night sky and a deep memory for these cosmic routes. Meanwhile, in the confined waters of the Mediterranean, sailors relied on portolan charts. These were intricate diagrams of coastlines, crammed with the names of ports and sketches of landmarks. A captain navigated by sight, moving from one known point to the next, his world defined by the visible horizon. The monsoon system broke from both traditions. Its charts were not about the static positions of stars or the shape of a bay. They were about time itself. They mapped the invisible schedule of the atmosphere. This temporal focus granted a freedom the others lacked. A Polynesian voyager, for all his genius, needed to see the stars to know his place. A Mediterranean captain was chained to the coastline. But a master of the monsoon clock could plan a voyage from Arabia to India months in advance, then sail for weeks across open ocean with no land in sight, guided by the predicted behavior of the wind. His system was predictive, not just reactive. While others were reading the permanent map of the stars or the fixed lines of the coast, he was consulting a calendar. This emphasis on periodicity allowed for a scale of operation that was simply impossible elsewhere. You could not schedule a fleet of 100 ships to arrive in Malacca on a specific date using only star paths or coastal landmarks. The variables were too great. But with the monsoon timetable, it became a matter of logistics, not luck. Each of these navigational cultures built a system perfectly suited to their environment. The Polynesian star compass was the ultimate tool for crossing an ocean studded with small targets, where a slight error in course meant missing an island and certain death. The Mediterranean portolan was ideal for a crowded, island-filled sea where one was never far from a safe harbor, and the monsoon clock was the undisputed master of the great, open basins of the Indian Ocean, where the challenge was not finding a speck of land, but harnessing the immense seasonal power that moved between continents. This comparison does not crown one system as superior, but instead showcases the brilliant adaptability of the human mind. Faced with entirely different oceanic puzzles, we invented entirely different solutions, each one a masterpiece of observation and innovation tailored to the rhythm of its world. Above the rhythmic breathing of the ocean, a grander clockwork was silently turning. The monsoon winds may have dictated the schedule, but the stars provided the universal timepiece that kept it accurate. For a navigator far from land, the predictable movements of the heavens were the only reliable calendar. He knew that the arrival of the southwest monsoon would coincide with the sun's position directly over the Tropic of Cancer, a celestial event that could be calculated and anticipated. More immediately, he watched for specific stars to herald the seasonal change. In the northern hemisphere, the steady, unwavering presence of Polaris, the North Star, was a fixed point of reference. But its height in the sky also told a story of the year's progression, subtly shifting with the seasons. For sailors venturing south of the equator, where Polaris slipped below the horizon, a new constellation became their guide, the Southern Cross. Its orientation in the velvety darkness marked not just direction, but also time, signaling the approach of the winds that would carry them home. This was not casual stargazing, it was a precise science. The cosmos provided a set of fixed points against which the fluid predictions of the wind charts could be verified. If a sailor's manuscript indicated the monsoon should arrive in a week, but his nightly observations showed the key star was not yet in its predicted position, he knew to wait. The heavens were the final arbiter of the timetable, a cosmic check on earthly expectations. Lunar cycles added another layer of precision to this celestial calendar. The waxing and waning of the moon provided a reliable, monthly rhythm that helped mark the shorter intervals within the broader monsoon seasons. Navigators observed how the monsoon's character could shift slightly with the phases of the moon, its power often intensifying with the full moon's gravitational pull on the oceans. By reading this lunar clock, a captain could time his departure not just for the correct season, but for the most favorable week or even the most advantageous day within that season. This deep astronomical knowledge was not confined to the decks of ships. On land, from the observatories of Jaipur to the scholarly centers of Baghdad and Damascus, astronomers were meticulously tracking these very same celestial patterns. They compiled elaborate tables called Zij, which detailed the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. This was big data, ancient style. These tables provided the theoretical backbone for the practical knowledge of the sailors, offering a refined, mathematical understanding of the cosmic cycles that govern the winds. The navigator's empirical observation and the astronomer's calculated prediction were two sides of the same coin, constantly validating and refining each other. This fusion of sky and wind created an incredibly resilient system for wayfinding. A mariner was never relying on a single source of information. He had his wind chart, his oral traditions, the feel of the sea, and the unerring confirmation of the stars. If the weather was overcast for days, hiding the heavens, he could fall back on the chart's predicted schedule and his reading of the ocean swells. When the sky cleared, he could immediately correct his course and recalibrate his timing based on the celestial truth above him. This multi-layered approach dramatically reduced the margin for error on voyages that could last for months. It transformed a potentially terrifying leap of faith into a calculated, verifiable journey. The true genius of the Monsoon Clock was this holistic vision, a worldview that saw no separation between the breath of the wind and the dance of the stars, understanding that to master the ocean, one had to first learn to read the sky. This environmental literacy transformed every voyage into a living dialogue with the sea. A master navigator's eyes were constantly scanning, reading a language written in the clouds and the water itself. He knew that certain high, wispy cirrus clouds, often called mare's tails, could be the first distant warning of a shifting weather system, a hint that the steady monsoon might soon strengthen or falter. The behavior of dolphins racing playfully at the bow could indicate a strengthening current, while a sudden absence of seabirds might suggest a dead calm was settling in far ahead. These were not superstitions, they were empirical data points honed over countless journeys. The ocean's color provided another critical clue. A deep, vibrant blue often meant clear, deep water and a steady current, while a sudden shift to a greenish or muddy hue could signal a change in depth, the outflow of a great river, or a powerful, unseen cross-current altering their course. Even the taste of the air on the tongue held meaning, a certain salty dampness foretelling the approach of a squall long before it appeared on the horizon. This profound sensory awareness created a navigation system that was fluid and responsive. If the formal wind chart said the southwest monsoon should be blowing steadily, but the captain saw the telltale signs of a weakening in the swell patterns and cloud formations, he could make a critical real-time decision. He might adjust his sail, change his angle to the wind, or even heave to and wait, trusting the evidence of his senses over the predicted timetable. This ability to read nature's immediate signals was their ultimate safety net, allowing them to dodge sudden storms that could shred their sails or avoid being trapped in windless doldrums for weeks. This deep, ingrained connection fostered a relationship with the ocean that was fundamentally sustainable. These sailors were not conquerors of the sea, they were its students. They understood that their survival depended on working within its rhythms, not commanding them. They harvested its wind power according to its own seasonal clock, and their routes were a graceful dance with its currents and weather, leaving no permanent mark upon the waters that sustained them. In our modern world of digital maps and constant connectivity, this ancient skill stands as a powerful reminder. True navigation, whether across an ocean or through life, requires more than just a pre-drawn map. It demands that we stay attuned to the subtle, real-time signals from the world around us, learning to read the environment not as a backdrop, but as the most vital guide of all. Even the most reliable clock can falter. The monsoon system, for all its brilliant predictability, was never a perfect machine. An unexpected shift in global weather, something akin to what we now call an El Niño event, could delay the vital winds for weeks, leaving entire fleets stranded in sweltering equatorial ports. Their carefully stocked provisions would dwindle, and the season's entire commercial schedule would collapse into disarray. A major volcanic eruption on the other side of the world, spewing ash high into the atmosphere, could alter weather patterns just enough to turn a dependable tailwind into a treacherous, swirling gale. These were the moments when the ocean reasserted its ancient power, reminding everyone that the charts were a guide, not a guarantee. Beyond the whims of the atmosphere lay more tangible dangers. The very superhighway that carried spices and silks also attracted pirates who knew the shipping schedules as well as any merchant. They lay in wait near narrow straits or behind uninhabited islands, ready to plunder a richly laden dhow slowed by contrary currents. And then there was the sea itself. A sudden squall could snap a mast, or a hidden coral reef could tear open a hull, sending a ship and all its hopes to the bottom. Long months at sea also brought the silent threat of scurvy and other diseases, a slow, grinding attrition that no wind chart could prevent. These constant perils meant the charts themselves were living documents. An early, inaccurate version might show a safe passage that later sailors discovered was riddled with submerged rocks. Such a mistake could mean a disastrous shipwreck or a voyage extended by months as a ship was forced to backtrack. Every captain returning to port carried not just goods, but new information, a story of a changed current or a newly formed sandbar that would be carefully integrated into the next iteration of the map. This inherent uncertainty demanded a special kind of courage from the navigators. They had to hold the planned route in their mind with an open hand, ready to abandon it at a moment's notice. The chart told them the ideal path, but their eyes on the waves and their feel for the wind told them the real one. Success depended on this flexible wisdom, a blend of deep preparation and the ability to make a critical decision with the storm clouds gathering on the horizon. The system's true strength was not that it eliminated risk, but that it provided a framework for managing it, a testament to human resilience in the face of an ocean that could offer a bounty or a betrayal with the same breath. The ocean floor holds secrets the written records never could. Across the Indian Ocean, underwater archaeologists are discovering the sunken time capsules that prove the monsoon clock was not just a theory, but a daily reality for thousands of sailors. In the silent, preserved holds of ancient shipwrecks, they find the tangible tools of this trade. A corroded bronze astrolabe recovered off the coast of Oman, its delicate fretwork still hinting at the star maps it once held, offers silent testimony to the celestial navigation that guided these voyages. Nearby, the wooden frame of a camel, its knotted string long dissolved, lies nestled beside ceramic jars that once carried pepper and pearls. These are not isolated finds. Inscriptions carved into stone pillars at ancient ports like Maritime in Sri Lanka meticulously detailed tariffs and taxes for goods arriving with the southwest monsoon, effectively etching the trade's seasonal schedule into rock. Each artifact is a data point, a physical confirmation of the system described in ancient manuscripts. The most compelling evidence often comes from the cargo itself. By analyzing the layers of a shipwreck, archaeologists can determine not just what was carried, but when the ship sailed. A dhow discovered with a hull full of Chinese celadon pottery and Arabian glassware, for instance, reveals a vessel caught at a midpoint on the superhighway. The specific mix of goods all arriving in a single catastrophic moment paints a vivid picture of a scheduled journey disrupted. Excavations on land provide the other half of the story. At the great port of Pattanam in India, believed to be the ancient Muziris, digs have uncovered wharves and warehouses designed to handle the seasonal flood of monsoon-driven traffic. Here they find broken pieces of pottery with annotations scratched into them, notes about wind directions or the names of seasonal harbors, serving as a sailor's personal, pocket-sized wind chart. These physical discoveries do more than just validate old texts. They fill in the vast gaps those texts left behind. They show us the wear on a ship's rudder from riding a single monsoon season for years, or the specific ballast stones from a distant quarry, telling us exactly where a ship called home. This archaeological testimony transforms the monsoon clock from an abstract concept into the very rhythm of a lost world, a pulse we can now feel with our own hands. That ancient dialogue between sailors and the sky never truly ended, it simply evolved. The principles of the monsoon clock are woven directly into the fabric of modern global navigation. Today's international shipping lanes, those superhighways for colossal container vessels, still follow the ghostly contours of the ancient wind roads. The same seasonal patterns that guided Dhow to Calicut are now calculated by powerful computers to plot the most fuel-efficient paths for massive ships crossing the same waters. A modern logistics company planning a voyage from Singapore to the Suez Canal will still consult detailed analyses of the monsoon cycles, not because the ship is powered by sail, but because riding a favorable current or avoiding a powerful headwind can save millions of dollars in fuel and shave days off a delivery schedule. The objective remains unchanged: to harness the ocean's natural rhythms for economic and efficient travel. This deep historical knowledge forms the bedrock of contemporary meteorology. The early observations of Arab and Indian scholars who first documented the monsoon's predictable reversal were the first data points in a record that now spans centuries. Modern scientists use sophisticated satellite networks and ocean buoys to monitor the same atmospheric phenomena, but they are essentially asking the same fundamental question: when will the winds change? The forecasts that now predict the arrival of the Indian summer monsoon with remarkable accuracy are not a radical break from the past. They are the direct descendants of those first monsoon clock almanacs, supercharged by technology. We have moved from observing cloud formations to modeling atmospheric pressure on a global scale, yet the underlying cyclical truth the ancients discovered remains perfectly valid. This enduring legacy highlights a fascinating paradox. The ultimate freedom from the wind, the engine-powered ship, was itself inspired by the historical success of wind-based navigation. The very reliability of the monsoon routes demonstrated the immense economic potential of scheduled oceanic trade, creating a powerful incentive to develop vessels that could maintain those schedules regardless of the weather. The steamship and later the diesel-powered container vessel were invented to guarantee the predictability that the monsoon winds offered only seasonally. Yet, in a final nod to the old system, these modern leviathans still voluntarily submit to the wind's wisdom. Captains will adjust their throttles and alter their course to catch a favorable tailwind or avoid a punishing storm, blending thousand-year-old observational science with real-time satellite data. The monsoon clock's greatest lesson was that working with the environment is always more efficient than fighting against it, a principle that continues to guide our journey across the global ocean. You can actually walk in the footsteps of those ancient navigators from your own home. A number of online platforms and mobile apps now offer interactive simulations of historical wind patterns. With a few clicks, you can pull up a digital map of the Indian Ocean and watch animated arrows representing the monsoon winds shift with the seasons. You can set a virtual how to sail from Zanzibar to India, then try to time its departure perfectly to catch the southwest monsoon, experiencing first and the critical importance of the schedule these sailors lived by. This digital experimentation makes the abstract concept of a wind chart feel tangible and immediate. For a more physical connection, seek out museums with dedicated maritime exhibits. Standing before a genuine, centuries-old wind chart, seeing the delicate lines of faded ink that once guided a ship across an ocean, is a profoundly different experience than reading about it. Many such museums, from Oman to Singapore, also feature full-scale replicas of Dhows. Climbing aboard one of these vessels, feeling the deck beneath your feet, and handling a replica of a lateen sail gives you a visceral understanding of the challenges and ingenuity of monsoon-era sailors. You begin to comprehend how a captain would have stood on that very spot, consulting his charts and feeling for the wind. If you live near a coast, you can conduct your own field observations. Pay attention to the prevailing wind direction over the course of a year. Notice how it might change with the seasons, a faint echo of the grand monsoonal shift. You can also track modern shipping lanes online, watching the real-time paths of container ships. You will see that these modern behemoths still cluster along routes that eerily mirror the ancient wind roads, a silent testament to the enduring logic of the monsoon clock. Perhaps the most powerful connection comes from looking up on a clear, dark night. With a simple star chart in hand, try to identify the North Star or the Southern Cross. Use a basic app to understand how their positions change through the night and the seasons. This simple act of celestial observation bridges a gap of 1,000 years, allowing you to share a moment of wonder and calculation with every navigator who ever trusted the stars to find his way home. These are not just academic exercises, they are portals into a lost world view, transforming history from a subject you read about into a reality you can almost touch and feel for yourself. The ocean's grand highway was powered by a simple, physical truth. Land and sea heat up at dramatically different rates under the same sun. This fundamental imbalance is the engine of the monsoon. During the summer months, the vast continental landmass of Asia bakes under intense solar radiation. The air above it grows hot, expands, and rises, creating a giant area of low pressure. Meanwhile, the Indian Ocean remains relatively cool, its waters absorbing the heat more slowly. The atmosphere abhors a vacuum, so this pressure differential acts like a planetary breath. Moist, dense air from over the ocean rushes inland to fill the void, creating the powerful, rain-laden southwest monsoon that sailors rode to India. In winter, the script flips completely. The Asian continent cools rapidly, becoming a massive, high-pressure dome of cold, dense air. The ocean, retaining its warmth, now has comparatively lower pressure. The system exhales, pushing dry, cool air from the land back out to sea as the dependable northeast monsoon. This seasonal reversal is not a local quirk, it is a planetary-scale circulation pattern. A key player in this drama is the Intertropical Convergence Zone, a belt of low pressure near the equator where the trade winds of both hemispheres meet. This zone, filled with thunderstorms and immense energy, migrates north and south with the sun's apparent movement. Its journey amplifies the pressure differences between land and sea, locking the monsoon winds into their remarkably consistent, seasonal rhythm across the Indian Ocean. Modern supercomputers now model these interactions with breathtaking complexity, calculating pressure gradients and ocean temperatures to forecast monsoon onset down to the day. Yet ancient observers with no concept of atmospheric pressure deduced the same essential principles through relentless, generations-long observation. They saw the sun's highest point in the sky and correlated it perfectly with the wind's abrupt change in direction. They understood the connection between a season of blistering heat and the arrival of the life-giving, navigable wind from the southwest. This empirical mastery is what makes their achievement so profound. They mapped and scheduled an oceanic highway by intuitively understanding the mechanics of a planetary heat engine, harnessing a force of nature through observation alone. The same winds that filled the sails of history also stirred the souls of its artists. Across the Indian Ocean world, the monsoon superhighway was not just a trade route, it was a wellspring of cultural expression. On the painted pottery of ancient Gujarat, we see ships with their distinctive lateen sails billowing proudly, forever capturing the moment a vessel caught the powerful southwest monsoon. These were not generic decorations, they were celebrations of a lifeblood technology, a visual record of the ships that brought prosperity. In medieval Arabic and Persian manuscripts, illuminations often depicted merchants weighing exotic spices, with stylized wind deities blowing favorably in the margins, a direct personification of the monsoon's power woven into the very documentation of commerce. These artistic choices reveal a society that saw the wind not just as a force, but as a conscious participant in their destiny. The literary record is even more vivid. The great Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta did not merely list the ports he visited, he painted them with words. His travelogues are filled with awe-struck descriptions of the bustling, multicultural harbors he reached by riding the monsoon winds, detailing the strange customs and immense wealth he encountered. He was a chronicler of the interconnected world the superhighway had built. Centuries earlier, Sanskrit poets had already been weaving the monsoon into their verses, using the arrival of the rain-bearing clouds as a metaphor for longing and reunion, intimately linking the rhythm of the human heart to the rhythm of the ocean's breath. These literary works blended meticulous factual detail with imaginative flourish, turning a navigational phenomenon into the backdrop for epic human stories. A single poem might accurately describe the timing of the winds while also telling a tale of a merchant's love for his family, a love sustained by the predictable return voyage the monsoon allowed. Today, these artifacts are far more than beautiful relics. They are emotional archives. A ceramic shard showing a ship tells us that someone, long ago, felt that scene was important enough to preserve. A poem about the wind gives us access to the hopes and fears of the sailors who depended on it. They offer us a priceless window into the human dimension of this vast system, allowing us to see the monsoon clock not as a dry, technical tool, but as a vibrant force that shaped dreams, inspired art, and connected countless lives across the watery expanse. Even with all we have uncovered, the story of the monsoon clock is far from finished. Countless questions remain, hidden in the silent spaces between the lines of ancient texts and the scattered wreckage on the ocean floor. How exactly did a Gujarati shipmaster and an Omani scholar, separated by thousands of miles of ocean, compare their wind observations to create a unified chart? Did they meet in a bustling port like Hormuz, sharing notes over spiced tea, or was the exchange a slower, more fragmented process of knowledge passed through a chain of intermediaries? The depth of this cross-cultural collaboration is still a profound mystery, and what of the charts themselves? We have found some, but many more are likely lost, their delicate parchment or palm leaf pages waiting in forgotten corners of monastic libraries or private family collections, perhaps even preserved in the silt of a sunken Dhow cargo hold. Each one could hold a unique regional perspective, a different piece of the global puzzle. Future research holds incredible promise for answering these questions. Scientists are now turning to the planet's own natural archives. By extracting ice cores from glaciers or analyzing sediment layers from ancient lake beds, they can read the chemical signatures of past climates. These layers act as a historical weather log, recording periods of strong monsoon winds or unusual drought. Correlating this physical data with the dates on a wind chart could definitively prove its accuracy. Was the monsoon of the year 1420 truly as powerful as the chart from that era suggests? The Earth itself may soon provide the verification. Beyond the physical world, digital technology offers another path forward. Artificial intelligence can be trained to scour enormous digital libraries of historical texts, ship logs, and maps, searching for patterns no human reader could ever detect. An algorithm might cross-reference a passing mention of a delayed wind in a Portuguese captain's diary with a celestial event noted in an Arabic astronomical table, revealing a previously invisible connection that deepens our understanding of the entire system. The most exciting discoveries will likely come from interdisciplinary work, where marine archaeologists, climate scientists, and cultural anthropologists join forces. A single artifact, like a ship's bell found in a wreck, can be dated, its metal alloy traced to a specific mine, and its cultural symbolism interpreted by ethnographers, building a multidimensional story from a single object. This ongoing quest ensures the monsoon clock is not a relic of a closed past, but a living narrative. Every new discovery, whether from a core sample or a line of code, has the potential to rewrite a paragraph, add a new character, or reveal an entirely unknown chapter in this epic tale of human ingenuity. This silent collaboration between sailors and the sky stands as a pinnacle of human ingenuity. The Monsoon Clock Wind Charts were far more than simple maps. They were a profound philosophical shift, a declaration that humanity could learn nature's schedule and work in concert with its immense power. By turning an unpredictable, terrifying sea into a scheduled superhighway, these charts did not conquer the ocean, they befriended it. They unlocked an era where spices, silks, ideas, and faith could flow between distant civilizations, fueling a golden age of progress built on understanding rather than domination. This legacy of collective benefit, of different cultures sharing knowledge to build something greater than themselves, offers a powerful lesson for our own interconnected world. Our modern global networks, with their instant communication and satellite-guided logistics, are the direct descendants of that first wind-driven web. They operate on the same fundamental principle that by decoding the patterns of our world, we can bridge vast distances and foster exchange. So the next time you check a live shipping update online or see a container ship on the horizon, remember the ancient mariners who first mapped the invisible highways of the sky. Their story invites us to look for the hidden connections and rhythmic patterns that still shape our lives, reminding us that the greatest human breakthroughs often begin with the simple, courageous act of observing the world around us. What historical mysteries would you like to explore next? Share your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for joining this journey across the winds of